Hey everyone, happy Wisdom Wednesday, and I have a book recommendation for you. I'm still working my way through it, but I found such a profound idea that I had to share it. This might be one of my best videos I've done maybe in a couple of years, to be honest. So the book is Maps of Meaning by Dr. Jordan Peterson, who's a psychologist. You might be familiar with his work. He wrote 12 Rules for Life. But this book he wrote over a span of about 15 years, and he's a very obsessive person. He literally, and I believe it, rewrote almost every sentence in this book about 50 times, and he jokes that this book nearly killed him to write it, and I'll be honest, it might nearly kill you to read it because it's very dense and difficult. And Maps of Meaning really studies how we've come up with these stories and our beliefs and our values and structures, and he goes through not only biblical times but also history, ancient history, and there's a story and a lesson I want to share with you that will dramatically and profoundly impact your life as a professional, as a person, and elevate yourself as a person. And I want to start out by pointing to this eye. See, what's interesting is that you may not know the meaning behind this eye, but you've definitely seen it. And I drew this on here versus, the diagram that I originally wanted to do because I want this to be something of meaning to you after I tell you the story. So in the book Maps and Meaning, he talks about ancient Egypt. And in ancient Egypt, the Egyptians understood that the world, no matter how great you make your environment, you usher in the utopia, everything's perfect, that things always seem to lean towards malevolence and ignorance, and things will become bad. That's just the nature of human beings. If you make everything perfect, they'll find a way to screw things up just out of pure boredom. So they recognize that, and they develop the story, and the story is so deep that it influenced, a culture and religion that lasted for thousands of years. And so, what's with the eye? The eye stands for Horus, the god of vision. And this is the story. And again, I want you to listen to this whole video. It'll be worth it. So, in ancient Egypt, there was a god, Osiris, the god of wisdom and tradition. And Osiris had an evil brother named Set. Set is the god of darkness. Now you might think to yourself, this sounds a little familiar, and it is. You've in fact seen the story, The Lion King. It's the exact same thing. So you have a wise king, the king of tradition, who has an evil advisor. And this wise king, who's the king of tradition, because he's the king of tradition, is willfully blind. He does not want to see the fact that his brother is evil, malevolent, ignorant. And he pays the price for that because in his moment of weakness, just like in The Lion King, Set, the god of darkness, kills and dethrones his brother and chops him up into pieces, 15 pieces, and distributes him throughout Egypt. And the Egyptians believed that, things do fall apart. But when things fall apart, you have chaos, right? And this is where Isis, the goddess of chaos, emerges, right? And she searches for Osiris and finds his phallus and impregnates herself, and she gives birth, right? And the idea of this is that when there's chaos, just like in investments, and I'll give you another easier book recommendation, The Tao of Warren Buffett, when things are going awry, when there's chaos, that's the time for opportunity, right? So the Egyptians believed this thousands of years ago, that when there's chaos, there's potential. And so Isis gave birth to a new god. That god is Horus. And what you don't see is that Horus is the god of vision, but if you look in ancient Egyptian times, he was also depicted as a falcon. Why? Because a falcon, birds of prey, more than human beings, have the best sight in the world. Human beings have the best sight of most animals, but the only thing that beats a human being is a falcon. It's the bird of vision. So why did the Egyptians do this? Because they believed that in times of chaos, in times of uncertainty, of ignorance, of malevolence, it's important to see. Which, by the way, it's very different from the ability to think. In order to think, you have to first be able to see. So think about where you work right now as a company. If things are going wrong, you're having fights with your team or with your boss or the people who report to you, before you have to think, you have to be able to be willing to see, which is, oh, there's a problem here. Something is wrong. Now, what does it mean to be able to see? That doesn't mean that you're able to see what you want, because the average person can see what they want. That's very easy to do. When you have the ability to see, you see the things you don't want to see. And so for Horus, the god of vision, the things that he saw was that the fact that his family member, his uncle, was evil, was malevolent, was ignorant. And so just similar to the Lion King, because again, that's the same story, Horus returns back to the kingdom and battles his uncle, right? And it's the clash of vision and darkness. And think about it when we're in the dark, right? How we're trying to feel around, we're trying to gain sight, we're trying to move towards the light. Even if you look at the way we use our words today, hours, Hours. You move the R over, it's Horus, right? Every day, it's the hours that are fighting against what? The darkness. Ra is the god of the sun. Sun, Ra, rise, right? When the sun sets, right? It's darkness. And Set, over time, actually turns out to evolve into Satan, right? So Horus and Set, they clash and they have this battle. And Horus defeats Set, right? And he doesn't kill him, because just like today, or for the rest of time, you cannot defeat malevolence or evil or ignorance. You can only banish it, because it will return no matter what. Just like the Egyptians believed, every utopia will tend and lean towards malevolence and ignorance, because things ossify. Traditions that we start today will ossify and be outdated years from now, and that's why we have to evolve it. So in that battle, though, Horus loses his eye. So you would think that in this story, what does he do? He just takes the eye and plops it back in. No, he doesn't do that. And this is where the Egyptians, and Dr. Peterson really illuminates this beautifully in his book, really surpassed their intelligence with this. Horus goes back down to the underworld to find his father. And at this point, his father is an empty, ghost-like figure, because he's been dead. And he takes his eye and gives it to his father. And so they emerge out of the underworld, father and son, arm in arm, to rule the kingdom in union. And what union is that? The union of tradition and vision. And so the idea that I want to impart on you, so that every day, not only when you see the eye, every day when you wake up and you look in the mirror and you see your eye, you ask yourself, are you removing the veils? Are you really allowing yourself and forcing yourself to see what you don't want to see? And that means not just in the things around you, that perhaps there's tyrannical people here, there's murderous people, there are untrustable people, but even more so, you see the things in you, things that are bad, that are malevolent, unfulfilled potential, talents that you're letting go to waste, that you're not allowing yourself to figure out so you can better serve the world. And the beautiful thing about this is that when you adopt the ability to see, the ability to pay attention, you can find things, tradition that may be ossifying, getting old, and you revivify it by having a new vision. And that way, we don't get rid of everything that we've developed over the years, over centuries in tradition. You find ways to revivify them, to do it in union between tradition and vision, and move forward to make something better. So that, my friends, is the book of the week. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm definitely not through it, so I'll be having more lessons on this in the future. As always, happy Wisdom Wednesday, and I'll see you next week.